on Triple J. Chris and Craig with you this afternoon. It's a great pleasure to be joined by Billy Corgan, formerly of Smashing Pumpkins.
Well, actually, I'm technically back in the Smashing Pumpkins. So
technically back in, is it?
Yeah.
What's going on? Are they reforming or not? Can you give us the scoop?
No. You get no scoop today.
Because the last I heard about it, you'd put a note in the newspaper, an advertisement, an ad in the newspaper in Chicago saying you wanted the band back together.
I didn't say that.
No, what did you say in it?
Well, you have to read the ad. You see, that's why I took it out.
It's been a real shame because we've been struggling to get the Chicago press here in Australia. So do you want to summarise it for us? Because it's been misrepresented that you wanted the band back together. So you should set the record straight.
No, I said I wanted to be back in the band.
Okay.
That's technically different. Because when you say put the band back together, that people automatically assume that I want to be in the same band with the same people.
Oh, okay.
But you want to put something called the Smashing Pumpkins back together.
You're fairly accurate there. As far as the other band members go, I'm very open, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's what I'm trying to do.
Can we rewind a little? Why did it break up in the first place?
You're about 4.5 years too late.
I know, but what was the reason that you decided to disband and pursue solo projects?
So that's technically incorrect too. I didn't disband to pursue solo projects. You're asking me a question based on a false premise. I don't know how to give you a true answer.
You still of course work with Jimmy Chamberlain. You work with him on the solo album that's just out this year.
Right.
Future Embrace.
Yeah, we're still very close. He's probably my best friend in the world.
Yeah, you two have always. It's been a difficult relationship over the time. There was the period when after the heroin overdose, he was out of the band and that. But you've always remained very close. And is it true that you guys he's like, I guess you have a very kind of tense relationship working together? You kind of bounce off each other?
No, not at all.
No,
our musical relationship is supreme. It's at the heart of the Smashing Pumpkins. Most people don't realize that Jimmy and I pretty much made all the records by ourselves. The other two really didn't play much on the records at all.
Oh, yeah, I thought you predominantly did pretty much most of the tracks yourself.
Yeah, but it was also Jimmy and I were sort of the force behind how those things went. It's just in Jimmy's case, his personal problems at the time got in the way of that. But he's put all those things behind him, so he's in a really good place.
So if you and Jimmy are together, I guess in a way that the Smashing Pumpkins can reform in that way. I mean, I guess not if you want to.
Well, we have our own opinion about it, but ultimately, the fans are going to decide what they consider valid or not valid.
So is your decision based on whether or not you want to go back to the same style of music? Is that the problem with whether or not you reform or whether you just give another name to some new project you're doing?
No, for me, it's more of a spiritual issue. Going back to the question that you asked that I didn't answer, which was why the band broke up. I felt the band was going in the wrong direction. The band was not formed to be an ego-y thing, a money thing. It was really formed to be about change, musical change, cultural change. And once we lost that plot, then there was nowhere else to go. I've had the last 4+ years to evaluate whether or not that was the right decision for me. I made that decision with the group based on what I thought was best for the group, but it wasn't the best decision for me. So going back into playing the Smashing Pumpkins really for me is a spiritual issue because it encompasses something that I want to accomplish in this lifetime that I don't feel has been accomplished.
It's an amazing legacy that the band created, and you've got legions of fans. And I'm interested in how you reconcile that popularity with the solo work you're doing now. I understand there were reports from the Melbourne concert that people still request the Pumpkin songs, and you're not prepared to do them on stage.
No, it's not that I'm not prepared. I just refuse to do those songs.
How do you reconcile the legacy of what the fans want compared with what you're pursuing as a solo artist?
Well, I don't think I became, who I became because I was what people wanted me to be. I think I've been at my best when I've just pursued whatever I felt was necessary to get where I need to go. I think it's been very important for me to not play the Smashing Pumpkins songs. I think it's been very important for me to try to put that legacy behind me in a way that allowed me to think about my music in a different way. Having done that and really pursued certain parts of my musical consciousness and heart, now I feel very strong about going back to playing Pumpkins music. I think if I was out here playing, 2 or 3 half-baked versions of Smashing Pumpkins songs, not because I want to play them, but because that's what people want me to do, I don't think I would be in the position where I would be thinking about going back into the band. So for me, that's the path that I needed to take for myself. And I don't ask anything special of that, but I don't really think put it this way. When a fan comes to see me play solo, and I can imagine myself in this situation, in the back of your mind, you'd like to hear a song that you'd like to hear. The Pumpkins released over 200 songs, so no matter what I play, somebody's going to be disappointed that I'm not playing the song that they want to hear. In addition to that, they don't really want to hear me play the songs. They want to hear the band play the songs. They want to hear that feeling. They don't want to hear some different version of that song. They want to hear what they're familiar with. So it's a compromise situation all along, and I just decided to do something that almost no one does, which is just say I'm not going to play those songs.
It is the case that generally speaking, people that go on and move on don't generally, get rid of that past there. And I mean, it obviously has caused some problem with some of the audiences, but generally speaking,
you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. I played probably over 100 concerts now of not playing Smashing Pumpkin songs, and generally speaking, 98% of the time it's no problem, and people find they accept the situation as is. No one was talking about Smashing Pumpkins after the show, so I proved my point, which is that hey, I'm a good musician, I still write good songs, and that's that. And if I was playing Smashing Pumpkin songs, I don't think things would really even be that different, to be quite honest with you. I think it has more to do with people's sentimentality than it has to do with art, and I think that's everything that's wrong with musical culture these days. It's this constant sentimentality. It's constantly going back to things that have already been proven to be true as opposed to trying to find new things that are exciting. And I think that's everything that's wrong with the music business, and I won't have any part of that. It's
strange to hear you say there, I proved my point, I'm a good musician and that, because I would have thought a point wasn't that didn't need to be proved. Given that, your primary role in the Smashing Pumpkins, given you writing most of the music and did a lot of, laid down most of the tracks, I wouldn't have thought it would have been something you felt like you need to prove, really.
Well, it's everything looks easier in hindsight. For people who actually saw the Pumpkins, in those years, 92, 94, 96, the band was not an easy experience. We didn't necessarily play all of our songs. If we did, we played alternate versions of those songs. Lots of people left those concerts very angry that we weren't the band they thought they were coming to see. Now people, in hindsight, they sort of add up all the things they like about the band. It creates a picture that's not really true. The band was a very, very difficult band. And I appreciate that people are so interested in the band and the band's work. And, of course, I'm here also talking about how I'm interested in going back to some of that work. But it ultimately comes down to where are you going to focus your energy. My energy is focused on being an artist. And I think that puts me, a lot of times, right at odds with what the music business wants and what a lot of the fan base wants, which is they want you to repeat a moment over and over and over and over again. But that's not how you create new, exciting things. So basically, you become an amusement park ride that's been ridden, and it's the same experience, but each time you ride it, it's a little less fun. I'm not interested in that. And if someone doesn't want to listen to my music or say, oh, he's so difficult, why has he got to be way? I totally accept that. I'm just here as a man saying I'm going to play my music the way I need to play it for me, and that out of that will come the best music, will come the best experiences.
What do you mean by saying that the band kind of wouldn't be on stage like people expected to be? They'd play very different versions than that. Do you mean that? Why was that? Was that a choice that you'd try and play very different versions all the time, or was it just, I guess, the nature of the band?
It was the nature of the band to stay constantly on the knife's edge of the tension of who people thought the band was and who we thought we were. I mean, if you look at the musical progression of the band from 1991 when our first album came out to 1998 when our fourth album came out, I mean, it's a huge progression. Most bands over those 7 years don't make those kinds of progressions. And we made those progressions by constantly pushing the envelope of what wasn't acceptable. Nowadays, of course, bands do songs with acoustic and strings, but back then we did songs like that and we were ridiculed. We did songs with solos. We were told we were crazy. Our music was too heavy. Our music was too loud. Our songs were too long. Our music was too dramatic. Now you look at alternative rock and all the things that the Pumpkins helped create are stock and parcel of what goes on. Tension is created by putting somebody in a situation that they're unfamiliar with. If you meet somebody and they walk up to you and say, hey, you got a funny nose, or, I don't like your shoes, immediately it puts you on the defensive. Instead of trying to warm people, we were constantly sort of trying to push them off of us and say, and make a decision. Are they with us or against us? And we used to split audiences right down the middle. There are a lot of gigs by the end of the gig, Smashing Pumpkins show, half the audience would have left because they were mad, and writing angry emails and all that stuff.
Did you enjoy doing that? Did you enjoy creating that tension, that feeling of kind of,
No,
seeing people leave or thinking we're really on doing something?
No, actually, my goal as a person is that everybody would leave happy. But you have to ask yourself, what is happiness? A guy could say, oh, happiness for me would be able to date, 5 girls at once. And all the girls are okay with that, and I just call whoever I want to see. But that's not going to get you to the kind of depth of relationship that really has to do with love and faithfulness and family and all the things that are important in life. Music has been reduced to this sort of like freak show. Can you do that thing? Hey, you're the guy who does that thing, Yeah. Can you do that thing? Like press a button and then the monkey jumps around, I'm not that person.
We don't want anyone to talk about Moby that.
I don't know what you're talking about. All I'm trying to say is, and it's sort of a long digression, but what I'm trying to say is that people don't consciously realize what they're asking an artist to do, which is to be their creation of the artist. Okay? But nobody dreamed me up. I dreamed me up. I came from out of nowhere. I mean, most people listening to this interview, they're living in very normal circumstances. The parents might have, a decent job or not a decent job. That's what I grew up in. I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth. I had to create something. No one came and said, oh, you're a genius. Hey, here's $1 million. I mean, I had to take a band from a city that no one paid attention to, from a music scene that no one cared about, playing music that everyone thought was old and dead and not interested, which is heavy metal and alternative music. And so you create something and everyone goes, oh, yeah, I like that. Keep doing that. But those people weren't there when we were creating that. So those people don't have the right to tell me where or how that ends. If I could just do what I want to do and have everyone sort of be happy with it, I think I would be much less contentious. But I constantly feel these expectations from the media, from the audience, and so it's my way of saying, back off of me, because you're killing the thing in me that loves this.
Do you think as an artist you can ever, you can kind of create a couple of things in your time? I mean, in a sense, most artists struggle throughout their lives to create one thing that kind of everyone comes up and goes, keep doing that, that's amazing, you've done that, you've done something original there. I mean, it must be very hard to kind of then go, okay, I've done that, I'm going to move on, I think I can create something else. Do you think many people do that? Do you think that's an amazing achievement to go that far?
I think most people look to find the one thing that works and then exploit that until it stops working. And I've never stuck around long enough to exploit it. I mean, the classic case is in Melancholy, we had the biggest album in the world, biggest band in the world, and we did the exact opposite on the next album. Total career suicide, still paying for it. But it was a bold move. It was a bold move.
Let's just leave the radio studio now. I've been inspired. Bugger this.
Let's go.
I'm going to go and do something else.
Let's go.
Do you think, on that point, are you a good judge of your own work? Like as a songwriter, how do you know when you've got something right?
There's a lot of songs I've written that I thought were great songs that nobody cares or talks about or sings along, so maybe I'm not the best judge of my work, I know some of the songs that went down as classic songs, I felt they were very strong at the time. But I could pick what I would say is an equally as good a song off another album that no one knows, and I can't, for the life of me, can't understand why that song's not as remembered as.
Do you think it comes down to the kind of actual, just objective nature of the song, or do you think there's always so many other factors like whether the music company pushes it, whether the timing or that kind of thing?
No, objectively, I would say that all hit songs, which would be songs that most people would know, they're moments in time. They seem to sort of snapshot and capture a moment in time that everybody remembers. Somehow they sum up the summer or that fall or something, and everyone seems to kind of come into a common agreement. And maybe I'll spend the rest of my life wondering why between a certain period of time why my music resonated with people, and Nirvana and Pearl Jam and Alice in Chains, all these bands with a certain sound resonated, and why then at some point those bands or those artists didn't resonate the same way anymore.
If music that succeeds is a reflection of the time, I hate to think what's happening at the moment with the Crazy Frog ringtone #1 around the world. It's a sad indictment of the time we're in, I think.
But I like to say that people get what they deserve. Yeah. And I mean, I would include Australia in this, as our world culture becomes more shallow.
Yeah.
And music is treated more like a sort of like a fun thing, as opposed to a deep thing. I mean, the Beatles sang about, very deep things that changed the way people thought, the way they dressed. Now it's like music is more of a fashion statement, and who you listen to and how you listen to them becomes a fashion statement. And fortunately, a lot of great artists that are currently out there, they become reduced to that same level, shallow level of thinking. It's not that they're not deeper, but no one expects anything deeper, so why should they go there? I'm a perfect example that if you go deeper, you'll pay for that.
Right. Is there a record you're proudest of, looking back across the whole career to date? Is there one that sort of stands out and said, yep, I got that right?
No, because I think they're all flawed, and I think they all have brilliant moments, but I think they're all flawed, I don't think man or woman is capable of perfection.
Really?
No, not really.
So it's not worth striving for perfection?
No, of course it's worth striving for. I think we're genetically programmed to try to do it, but
Billy's clearly giving it a crack.
I'll kill myself trying. But honestly, I would tell you that I don't think I'm capable of anything perfect.
Well, don't die for it on our account. So, Billy Corgan, it's been a real pleasure catching up.